Joining me now, Florida Republican Congressman Byron Donalds. Welcome back to Fox News Sunday.
It's good to be back with you.
All right, let me start with this. Did you, going into Tuesday, imagine it would be quite as decisive as it was, not only at the top of the ticket, but the Senate, the House races as well? Still waiting on the House.
Well, I did, but before we get to that, I want to thank the American people for voting for Donald Trump, for allowing us the opportunity to go in there and get the job done and making our nation great again. We're going to get to work. But to your question, I did think it was going to be decisive because it didn't matter what state you were in. The same issues were bothering the American people. A terrible economy, high inflation, open borders, and conflict around the globe. Donald Trump is the person, the candidate, the man with the ability to fix these problems. The American people saw it clearly. That's why his victory was overwhelming.
Okay, let's talk about his critics who have now ominous warnings now that he is once again president-elect. David French writing at the New York Times, if Trump was telling the truth about his intentions, then he will attempt a campaign of retribution and mass deportation that will fracture families, create chaos in American communities, and potentially even result in active duty troops being deployed to our cities. Here's what your House colleague, Democratic Congressman Richie Torres, had to say.
One of the fundamental differences between his first presidency and his subsequent presidency is the fact that he now enjoys absolute immunity, and he seems to be intent on exacting revenge against his political enemies.
How do you respond to Americans who say they now are fearful about a second Trump presidency?
For the American people who've been listening to these lies from the Democratic left, I would tell you this is not something that Donald Trump has ever spoken to or he's committed to whatsoever. There's no enemies list. I mean, yeah, there are people who've been opposed to him, but he is focused on the American people. Job number one is securing our border and beginning the process of deporting illegal immigrants out of our country. Job number two is getting our economy thriving again, becoming energy dominant again. That's his focus. His focus is the American people, not some enemies list that only gets talked about in the Daily Kos or Salon.com or any other place like that. He's focused on making our country great. And what will happen in our country is success is going to be the measurement that he will use to demonstrate he's back in the White House and back in charge of running this nation. The metric is success. There is no other measure.